Before we begin, I want to be honest with you. The decision to cover this case wasn't easy for me. I sat with it for a while because it's a case about a baby who faced terrible abuse at the hands of her parents. And I'm aware that many of you are parents. Some of you are trying to become parents who would give anything for a child of your own. And this one's going to be hard for you. Okay, this is one of the most talked about cases in Korea right now. Everyone in the country is closely following the coverage. The treatment of this baby, who was given the pseudonym Haedeun, had sparked national outrage. It's led to the courts being flooded with petitions and pushed a child abuse reform bill all the way to the National Assembly. I really didn't want to cover this case because I know that this is going to be so difficult for me, but I felt I had to because it matters and because Haedeun deserves to have her story told. And what I can't get my head around, what I really cannot make sense of no matter how many times I go over the details, is how a person does this to a baby they chose to bring into this world. Haedeun was just 4 months old, a child who had never seen anything in her entire life except the inside of one home, who had no one but her parents, who couldn't speak, who couldn't escape, who couldn't ask for help. I am so angry. Just talking about this, I'm sad, I'm devastated. And I think you will be too. So if you're a parent, especially of a young child, please know what you're getting yourself into. For everyone else, let's talk about Haedeun. October 22nd, 2022, 12:30 in the afternoon. An urgent emergency call comes into the emergency services from Yeosu, South Jeolla Province. A mother is on the line saying her baby fell into the bathtub and is not breathing. The child is 4 months old, 133 days old to be exact. If you have ever held a 4-month-old, you will know. They can't crawl, they cannot sit up on their own. They have barely adjusted to being outside the womb. Every single thing they need, warmth, food, safety, comes entirely from those around them. They are in every sense helpless. And because of that helplessness, they trust their carers completely. They have no other choice. When the paramedics arrived, Haedeun's face was pale, and her lips had turned blue. And she was still alive, but barely. She was rushed to the nearest hospital. Inside the ambulance, the paramedics worked to keep Haedeun alive. She was tiny, not yet 6 kilograms, and currently unable to breathe on her own. Her mother's explanation was straightforward. She had placed her baby in the bathtub to wash her, stepped away for a moment, and Haedeun had fallen under the water. But the paramedics, as they administered emergency care, noticed that Haedeun was covered in bruises. Not one or two, they were everywhere. Bruises on her arms, her legs, her head. Some had turned yellow, the way old bruises do. Others were still a fresh, dark blue. Wounds at different stages of healing, scattered across a tiny body that weighed less than 6 kilograms. One of the paramedics who was present that day would later say that from the moment she saw the baby, she knew. Anyone would have known. Haedeun had been beaten. Haedeun was transferred first to a nearby hospital, but her condition was determined to be too critical for them to handle. The medical team said she needed an immediate transfer to a higher level facility. So back into an ambulance she went, and she traveled 110 kilometers from Yeosu to Gwangju. But something important happened between those two ambulance rides. The mother, who had traveled with Haedeun to the first hospital, was banned from accompanying her to the second. The medical staff, suspecting this was a case of child abuse, had called the police. So for the journey to the second hospital, A local government official traveled in the ambulance with Haedeun instead. When Haedeun arrived in Gwangju, she was rushed directly into surgery. And when surgeons opened her abdomen, blood started to pour out. There was 500 milliliters of it pooled inside the belly of a 4-month infant. That's enough to fill a small water bottle. Even for an adult, 500 milliliters is a significant hemorrhage. For a baby of Haedeun's size, it was catastrophic. The surgical team said immediately that drowning alone could not possibly have caused this. This kind of bleeding simply doesn't happen without severe external force causing the tearing of an internal organ. The examinations on little Haedeun continued. A brain scan found hemorrhaging. Doctors noted that spontaneous brain bleeds at this age are extremely rare. They require impact. They require force. Then came the x-rays. 23 fracture marks across the rib cage. 2 ribs broken completely through. Doctors reported that the rib fractures were not in one place, but in different locations, which suggested they had not occurred all at once. They had been inflicted on multiple separate occasions over time. It was clear this was not an accident. This was a textbook example of child abuse. Haedeun underwent 2 surgeries. She fought for 4 days to hold on, but she didn't survive. The official cause of death was hemorrhagic shock and multiple organ failure due to traumatic injuries. She had not drowned. She had been beaten to death. 133 days old, barely 4 months in this world, and Haedeun's life ended there. The police arrested the mother the same day. When officers arrived, the mother, identified as Ms. Yang, was wearing pajama bottoms. She gave the police her account of what had happened on the day she called the emergency services. She said Haedeun had vomited, so she took her to the bathroom. While washing her in the tub, the baby had a bowel movement. Ms. Yang was cleaning her up when she became momentarily distracted, and during that time, Haedeun drowned. She said that she'd been suffering severe stress from raising the child, and that it was her fault for not watching more carefully. Regarding the bruises, Ms. Yang had an explanation for that too. When she discovered Haedeun submerged in the water, she panicked and pulled her out. The chaos of trying to revive her, performing CPR, striking her limbs to try to wake her was what caused the bruises, she said. She denied ever abusing her baby. The medical team disagreed with every part of her account. Bruises of different colors do not come from a single incident. The range of healing stages meant the injuries had accumulated over days or weeks, not minutes. No amount of CPR explains 23 fractured ribs, 500 milliliters of internal bleeding, and a brain hemorrhage. Then the father, identified as Mr. Saul, came forward with some evidence. He submitted a home security camera clip to police, showing the baby rolling off the bed 8 days earlier. He suggested that the brain hemorrhage had come from that fall, a domestic accident, nothing more. Between the bed fall and the bathtub incident, everything could be explained, he said. No abuse, no intent to harm. But there was a detail that neither of them could explain away. At 12:03 in the afternoon, Ms. Yang first noticed that the baby's breathing was abnormal. The emergency call to 119 was not placed until 12:30 p.m. 27 minutes passed between that discovery and their decision to contact the emergency services. If a baby is unconscious and not breathing properly, you don't wait 27 minutes. Her account also began to shift. In the first interview, she said she had left Haedeun unattended, and it was her fault. In subsequent questioning sessions, she walked that back. She said she had simply zoned out for a moment, that there was no intentional neglect. Investigators noticed the story was changing. One expert who reviewed the case raised a possibility that was difficult to hear, that the bathtub incident had not been an accident at all. That by the time Ms. Yang placed the baby in the water, Haedeun may have already been gravely injured from abuse. and that the drowning scenario was designed to give her death a different explanation. A tragic accident is different from a murder. Police decided they needed to see more footage. They believed the single clip that the father had submitted did not show the whole picture. They obtained a search warrant, returned to the home, and seized 2 home security cameras, one from the primary bedroom, one from a smaller room. Digital forensic analysts went to work. They had 12 days of recordings, nearly 4,800 files. From the very first clip, the investigators were shaken. On the home security cameras, the footage showed Ms. Yang holding her 4-month-old baby upside down by the ankles. It showed her stepping on the baby's face. It showed her pressing a pillow over the baby's face. And it captured audio of her saying that she wanted the baby to die, that she was going to kill her. These were not isolated moments. Over the course of 1 week alone, she assaulted the baby 19 times. 19 confirmed incidents in just 7 days. Investigators then focused on the recording from October 22nd, the day Haedeun died. The camera in the primary bedroom had no direct view of where the abuse occurred that morning, but it had audio. They turned up the volume. At around 10 a.m., Haedeun was stirring gently, nearly asleep. She looked peaceful, and that was the last peaceful moment she would have. At about 10:40, the sound of her mother approaching woke the baby with a start. Miss Yang picked her up and took her out of the room. The camera kept running. About an hour later, the sounds began. Dull, heavy impacts. Something being struck repeatedly, and Haedeun was crying. She could be heard crying more than 10 minutes. Then at 11:46, the audio suggested the baby had a bowel movement, consistent with what Ms. Yang had described. But what the recording captured next contradicted her account entirely. She had said she was briefly annoyed. What the audio captured was pure rage, shouting, profanity, and then the same dull, heavy sounds repeating. The baby's crying gradually grew fainter, and then the house went quiet, a heavy kind of silence, one that feels wrong. At 12:03 p.m., Miss Yang noticed the baby's breathing had changed, and then, we still don't know why, she waited 27 minutes before calling for help. There was one more detail captured in that audio, something that couldn't be unheard once investigators listened to it. Before the violence began that morning, before the thuds and the crying, Miss Yang had said something to her baby. She told Haedeun she was not needed. Those were among the last words Haedeun ever heard from her own mother. Prosecutors had initially charged Ms. Yang with child abuse, resulting in death, meaning abuse that caused death but without the intent to kill. After reviewing the footage and the audio, they upgraded the charge. The recordings of Ms. Yang's voice saying she wanted the baby to die, that she was going to kill her, were treated by prosecutors as direct evidence of intent to kill, justifying the upgrade to a child abuse homicide charge. Faced with damning evidence in the footage, Ms. Yang admitted to hitting Haedeun. She acknowledged leaving her alone in the bathtub, but she maintained to the end that she had never intended to kill her. Her father's role was addressed separately. The home security camera footage showed Mr. Hall present during episodes of abuse. He didn't participate, but he watched. He made no attempt to intervene. On at least one occasion, he picked up the couple's firstborn child and simply left the room, leaving Haedeun behind. Now it's probably worth addressing the presence of another child. How was this child, known to the public as Hana, spared from suffering the same fate as Haedeun? There is very little information available on Hana, who was just a year older than Haedeun. But it is said that Ms. Yang had a severe obsession with Hana and would complain to others that Haedeun prevented her from paying enough attention to her firstborn. Ms. Yang was also unable to hold a first birthday party for Hana due to issues related to her pregnancy when she was carrying Haedeun. This might not seem like a big deal, But a child's first birthday party is a very significant event in Korea, with family and friends and sometimes even the parents' work colleagues in attendance. Missing such a key event in Hana's life likely caused resentment toward Haedeun before she was even born. But that's all we know. In the footage of Haedeun being abused, Mr. Seo removed Hana from the situation. He was arrested on charges of child abuse by neglect, but Mr. Seo's actions after Haedeun's death resulted in additional charges being added. He contacted the acquaintance who had talked to the police about the abuse and berated them for, in his words, destroying his family. He called the paramedic who had transported Haedeun and threatened legal action over an online comment memorializing her. He phoned media outlets that had reported on the case to lodge complaints. The only thing he achieved through these actions is gaining additional charges of retaliatory intimidation. And on the day his baby daughter died in the hospital, the day she finally succumbed to her multiple injuries, investigators found through Mr. Seo's phone records that he had visited an establishment offering sexual services. When Mr. Seo later applied for bail on the grounds that his surviving child needed a parent at home, the court rejected the request without hesitation. Throughout the trial, Mr. Seo's behavior remained difficult to comprehend. He had first submitted a short clip of video footage to police in an attempt to protect his wife. When additional cameras were seized and the full scope of the abuse became undeniable, he changed his story. But not in the way you might expect. He said he hadn't realized his wife's actions were abuse. He claimed that what he had witnessed, his wife stepping on Haedeun's face, holding her upside down by the ankles, pressing a pillow over her head, was the kind of thing anyone could do while raising a child. Stepping on a 4-month-old's face, holding her upside down, smothering her with a pillow, just normal parenting, he said. The trial made its way through the courts through early 2026. In January 2026, the presiding panel at the Gwangju District Court's Suncheon branch reviewed the home security camera footage during a hearing. The judges were so shocked that they set aside the formality of legal language and simply said that hearing the audio alone was deeply painful and that no written charge sheet could adequately describe what had been done to this child. On February 28, 2026, a popular Korean investigative program aired a full episode on this case. The broadcast included details from the investigation, including the finding that in the final weeks of Haedeun's life, her mother had assaulted her 19 times. The public reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, the court's mailing address was being shared across social media alongside templates of petition letters, urging the court to hand down the maximum sentence possible. Between March 3rd and March 6th alone, members of the public sent approximately 1,500 written petitions to the Suncheon branch. The parents' personal information circulated online. Their wedding photos spread across platforms. The mother's personal blog, which had contained posts about the difficulty of childbirth and postpartum depression, was deleted after the broadcast, but not quickly enough. Many had already read it. On March 5th, a public petition titled "A Request for Stronger Punishment of Child Abuse" was filed with the National Assembly. In just 5 days, it received 50,000 signatures, the threshold required for a legislative review. On March 10th, it was referred to the Legislation and Judiciary Committee. Reporting around the case brought fresh attention to the issue of child abuse, resulting in the discovery of another disturbing fact. Across South Korea, 96 other children over the past 5 years died from child abuse. Most of those cases never even reached the public consciousness. 96 children. Each one of them, like Haedeun, had been brought into this world. Each one had looked up at a face that was everything to them. And most of them were killed by their parents, the very people supposed to love them and protect them from harm. The final hearing took place on March 26, 2026. Prosecutors asked the court to sentence Haedeun's mother to life in prison. For the father, they requested 10 years. Both were also asked to complete a child abuse prevention program and be barred from working with children for a decade. In delivering their recommendation, prosecutors told the court that the medical team who performed the autopsy said the damage to Haedeun's body was unlike anything they had ever seen. Fractures to her head, abdomen, arms, and legs, internal bleeding, and through all of it, with the home camera footage as undeniable proof, neither parent has shown remorse. More than 5,500 petitions demanding the harshest possible sentence had been submitted to the court. The actual sentencing, the verdict, will be handed down on April 23rd, 2026. A local politician in Yeosu, reflecting on the case, said that the community had done nothing, that this was not only a family's failure, but a collective one. The case prompted people to demand justice, harsher sentences, public disclosure of identities, stronger laws, more accountability. But experts responded with something more uncomfortable than anger. They pointed out a trend. In South Korea, when it comes to child abuse cases, abuse against younger children tends to result in lesser sentences. For children under 1 year old, sentences of less than a decade are not uncommon. The implicit assumption still present in the legal system is that very young children exist in a space where parental authority overrides other considerations. But a child is not a possession. A child is a person, and the younger the child, the more completely they depend on the adults around them for survival. Haedeun had never known any world but the one her parents built around her. Her home was her entire universe. Her mother's face was the first thing she had ever seen. And she was born to be loved, but in the 130 days she spent on this earth, that love never came. She should have been loved, she should have been cared, and she should still be here. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.